Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, HISUIAN AVALUGG. HISUIAN AVALUGG is an Ice and Rock type Pokemon with the moveset of Powder Snow, Crunch, and Rock Slide. HISUIAN AVALUGG can be encountered if you participate in the HISUIAN AVALUGG Raid Day, which takes place on Christmas Eve from 2 to 5 p.m. local time. For the team, I decided to put AVALUGG on the lead, and I have Trevenant and Virizion in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and test out HISUIAN AVALUGG in the Ultra League. Hopping to the first match, leading HISUIAN AVALUGG into Cresselia. This matchup is definitely made better by the fact that HISUIAN AVALUGG does have access to Crunch. Crunch, of course, does not get same type attack bonus, but thanks to Powder Snow, it will be able to reach Crunch pretty quickly, and I'm able to get a defense drop. I do survive any one charge move here. Cress is going to go for the Moonblast, so it looks like they are not running super effective Grass Knot. That is quite nice. I'm going to farm up and fire off Crunch number 2. Since their defense is lower, this is going to get them incredibly low, and my plan is to commit the shield and fully farm down. They go for the Future Sight. I'm very happy I shielded that, and then they're going to send in Swampert. I farm up, switch, and catch the Hydro Cannon onto my Trevenant. That is absolutely massive, and now I can pretty safely overfarm in this matchup, and I'll fire off the Seed Bomb just before they're able to reach a potential Earthquake. Seed Bomb will, of course, one-shot. My opponent is going to let it go, and they have Talonflame in the back. I do need to start guaranteeing shields, so I'm going to fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will hit for some heavy neutral damage. Opponent commits the shield. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to reach the second Shadow Ball, but I got very close. How precise is their counting? And we get the second shield. That's huge. They have a ton of energy, so I'm just going to send in Virizion to basically tank their damage, and they end up switching into Cress. That works for me. I'm going to fire off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to KO, and in comes Talonflame. I can just tank the move, send in HISUIAN AVALUGG, and Rock Slide will KO. In comes AVALUGG. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a pretty nice lead in the next match, HISUIAN AVALUGG into Lugia. My opponent is going to save switch into Regice, and this is a pretty big core breaker for my team. Regice can of course learn Blizzard and the nuke move of Focus Blast, so it can hit my entire team for at minimum super effective damage. I will respect the potential Focus Blast, but it turns out they're running Thunder, so I can pretty safely stay in here with HISUIAN AVALUGG. They're going to fire off a Thunder. Thunder gonna be doing some neutral damage. I'm gonna look to overfarm here, build up to the back-to-back moves, and then fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide should KO if they let it through, which they do, and they send back in Lugia. I'm gonna fire off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will hit for big super effective damage here. Rock Slide lands. I'm gonna continue to farm. They're gonna fire off a Sky Attack. I will commit the shield because if they're staying in here, they've gotta be weak to AVALUGG in the back. I'm gonna go for the Crunch in case they shield. Hopefully I can get a debuff. Crunch is gonna KO. In the back, they have Shadow Charizard, and unfortunately, I am going to lose this game. They were triple weak to HISUIAN AVALUGG, but with 2 grass types in the back, and me falling just short of the Rock Slide, I concede the match. Pretty tough lead in the next match, HISUIAN AVALUGG into Registeel. I throw 1 Powder Snow, save switch into Trevenant, and my opponent responds with a Charm Alola Ninetales. Definitely happy to bait out the Charmer, as my Virizion would not have appreciated seeing it. I go for the Seed Bomb bait, and my opponent lets it through. A pretty nice read by my opponent. However, I should be able to shield, and by going double Seed Bomb, get both of my opponent's shields back, if they're looking to keep switch advantage. So I am going to be firing off the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb will get the shield, 1 more Shadow Claw, and another Seed Bomb. My opponent probably going to be double shielding here because they want to keep their initial alignment. I was able to get the Ninetales pretty low though, so now I'm going to send in HISUIAN AVALUGG and commit to an incredibly aggressive Powder Snow farm down. They go for the Psyshock. AVALUGG able to tank it. AVALUGG looking for the farm down and gets it. That is quite nice. My opponent sends in Registeel. I'm going to fire off the Crunch to hopefully get a debuff here. Crunch lands. No debuff. I bank a move and I send in Virizion. My opponent is staying in this matchup. Maybe they just want to get chip damage, so I will commit the shield, get baited with a Zap Cannon, and unfortunately, they do get the debuff. But the fact that they're staying in here makes me think they must have a water type in the back. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to overfarm slightly before I fire off this next Sacred Sword. So that way, if they try and switch into the water type, which they do, I will be able to reach the Leaf Blade. It's a Swampert in the back. Swampert not going to appreciate the double super effective damage. Opponent will fire off a charge move, and from here, I can just switch in AVALUGG, farm down, and crunch for the win. In comes the AVALUGG, and the opponent concedes the match. Moving into the next match, leading HISUIAN AVALUGG into another Cresselia. Same game plan as before, I'm just going to stay in this matchup and play it out. I'm going to fire off the Crunch. As we've seen, Crunch will do some solid super effective damage onto the Cresselia, but this time I do not get a debuff. I'm going to tank whatever they throw here, we'll see what their moveset is, and they're running Grass Knot. That is a little rough because Grass Knot does hit for super effective damage, so I switch and catch the Grass Knot onto my Trevenant. Trevenant will be able to absorb that damage. My opponent is going to send in Shadow Gliscor. Gliscor is going to fire off the Night Slash. I should barely be able to live this on very low HP, and I'm going to under-tap the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will hit for some nice damage. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and now I can send in AVALUGG. These Powder Stones hitting for double super effective damage, and I'll get some chip with the Rock Slide. Night Slash is not going to KO here, so I should be able to let this through, Powder Snow down, and then leave with energy to threaten the Cresselia. My opponent is going to send in the Cresselia, and I'm going to fire off the Crunch. I'm hoping, because Psycho Cuts don't do a lot of damage, that I can make it to a second one. It looks like I'm not going to be able to, so I'm just going to send in Virizion. I will commit the shield. My opponent fires off the Moonblast. In the back, they have Charizard, and with no Stone Edge on Virizion, I concede the match. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, HISUIAN AVALUGG into Trevenant. Trev, of course, is able to hit for super effective damage with Seed Bomb, but I can hit for super effective damage as well with Powder Snow and with my Crunch. They fire off the Seed Bomb, that lands, I under-tap the Crunch, but my opponent makes a beautiful switch, catching the Crunch onto Drapion. Drapion definitely not a fun Pokemon for this team to see, but it looks like they're running Aqua Tail and Crunch, and no Sludge Bomb means that my Virizion is actually fine here. So I'm going to bank some energy, go for a catch. My opponent holds on to their energy, but they still have zero good charge moves to throw at the Virizion. They go for the Crunch. Crunch is resisted, and they do not get the defense drop. That is absolutely incredible. I'm going to fire off the neutral Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is able to get them low, and I get the farm down. Opponent is going to send in Trevenant. Trevenant is probably going to look to overfarm on energy, and I'm going to spam out as many Leaf Blades as I possibly can, because the Leaf Blades do a surprising amount of resisted damage over time. I'm firing off Leaf Blade number 2. Trev lets it through. Trev, now deep in the red. They'll fire off a charge move just before I reach my Leaf Blade. I'm going to let this go. They do full send the Shadow Ball. Send in my Trevenant in the back. They have Skuntank. This is bad. I'm going to get some chip damage here with the Seed Bomb and rely on AVALUGG. My opponent commits the shield, and that is really good for me because Rock Slide is going to do a lot more than a potential Seed Bomb. So a bit of a misplay there by my opponent. I am expecting a shield on this second move, so I'm going to bait with a Crunch to try and get a debuff. I do get the shield, but I don't get the debuff. My HP is very low. Can AVALUGG withstand the resisted poison jabs? It's going to be close. AVALUGG able to withstand the poison jabs and get to the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will KO. Trev is too short of a Shadow Ball, so they're not going to get there, and they concede the match. Nightmare lead in the next match, HISUIAN AVALUGG into Buzzwole. Buzzwole core breaks the heck out of my team, so I'm in trouble, and that trouble only gets compounded by the fact that my opponent is going to respond to my Trevenant save switch with a Gliscor. Gliscor will be able to tank the Shadow Ball. They do have enough for back-to-back Night Slashes. I'm hoping they overfarm more to allow me to reach a Seed Bomb, but very precise counting by my opponent, and they're not going to let me grab a shield advantage. That is unfortunate. I'm going to send in AVALUGG, and AVALUGG will be able to get the farm down. My opponent's going to send back in Buzzwole. At the very least, I can hit for neutral with the Rock Slide, and then hope that Leaf Blades are going to be enough, but my opponent commits the shield. I send in Virizion, but with no Stone Edge, this is looking like a losing battle. Regardless, I'm going to try and play it out. They go for the lunge. That is going to lower my attack, and I'm going to bait a potential Stone Edge to try and grab a shield from my opponent. I am able to grab the final shield, but unfortunately, I just have nothing that I can hit this Buzzwole with. They go for another lunge. I am now 2 stages debuffed. I'm just going to keep spamming out Leaf Blade after Leaf Blade. They are resisted and now double debuffed. So things are really not looking good for me. I'm firing off another Leaf Blade. I'm hoping to be able to reach a third one here. It's going to be close. Virizion gets countered down, and I concede the match. Moving into the next match, picking up a pretty tough lead, HISUIAN AVALUGG into Berserker. I'm going to save switch into Trevenant, but this is not much of a better matchup, as Berserker is still able to hit for super effective damage here as well. I will commit the shield on the foul play. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit, and then I'm going to bait with a Seed Bomb. I'm hoping to try and grab a shield from my opponent here. Seed Bomb bait does get the shield. That's big. I continue to farm. Unfortunately, I will get outpaced in this matchup. Berserker is quite spammy. I shield up the foul play, and I'm going to bait a second time. Again, hoping to try and grab that final shield from my opponent. I will fall just short of making it to the Shadow Ball, but I will be able to win the CMP tie on the Seed Bomb, so at the very least, I'll be able to get Berserker low and set up Virizion for a potential farm down. Berserker is able to take me out with this foul play. I'm going to send in Virizion and look for the farm down. Virizion gets the farm down. We'll have to see what my opponent has in the back. And they're incredibly weak to Virizion as they have Tapu Fini as their best answer. I'm going to be able to reach double Leaf Blade and KO before they even reach a Moonblast. So I'm going to overfarm by quite a bit here. I'm firing off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade KOs. In the back is Swampert. Who even needs HISUIAN AVALUGG? And that is a good game. Hopping to the final match, leading HISUIAN AVALUGG into another Trevenant. I'm staying in this matchup, overfarming, and my opponent is going to fire off a move. I'm going to let this go. Seed Bomb is going to hit for super effective damage, and I'm going to return fire with the Crunch. Crunch will do a lot of damage here. I wouldn't be surprised to see a shield. I'm going to farm up, switch, and catch a Seed Bomb onto my own Trevenant. This way I can waste their energy and check for a grass counter in the back, but they send in Ampharos, so it doesn't look like they have a designated grass counter in the back, and that's really good news for my Virizion. Brutal Swing is going to do a ton of damage, but I'm able to hang on and reach the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will get them low. Ampharos looking for the farm down, and it's a simultaneous KO. I don't know what they have in the back. I'm going to decide to bring in AVALUGG since I have energy, and they have Wall Rain in the back. So Treb Wall Rain Core both can be hit for super effective damage by HISUIAN AVALUGG. I'm able to land the Rock Slide. They're going to fire off an Icicle Spear. It would KO, so I am going to respect it with a shield, and I'm going to go for Rock Slide number 2. My opponent switches back into Trevenant on the Rock Slide. Rock Slide would just about KO anyway, so we do see a shield, and now I'm going to send in Virizion. Virizion should be in a pretty nice spot to finish off this game, just due to the fact that I am incredibly healthy here. This is enough for the Shadow Ball. I will respect it, as a Shadow Ball would definitely hurt, and they go straight for it. That's huge. I'll be able to farm up to 1 before the back-to-back moves, fire off Leaf Blade number 1 to take out the Trevenant, and then after one more double kick, reach Leaf Blade number 2 versus the Wall Rain. Virizion closing strong, and that is a good game. And now some final thoughts on HISUIAN AVALUGG and its potential in PvP. First off, in terms of HISUIAN AVALUGG's use in the Ultra League, basically, if you're wanting to use it, I would honestly just use Aurorus. Aurorus does share the same typing, but the big advantage that Aurorus has compared to something like HISUIAN AVALUGG is access to Meteor Beam, which is an absurdly powerful move compared to something like Rock Slide. And when it comes to Master League, HISUIAN AVALUGG isn't even in the top 50, so for the Master League, we're probably looking at fringe viability at best there as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.